In an art studio overlooking the tranquil ocean, paintings adorned the studio walls. Soft music fills the air as a young artist meticulously blends colors on his palette, bringing life to a large canvas. He sat by the large windows, and his silver hair glimmered in the daylight streaming through the expansive windows. The peaceful moment is interrupted by the sound of footsteps. A visitor enters, a journalist, bundled up against the cold. She introduces herself as Kim Sungin from The Blossom, here for an interview. The artist, revealed to be Lee Garam, welcomes her warmly, expressing gratitude for her journey through the snowy weather. Sungjin admires the breathtaking ocean view from his studio, marveling at how close she is to the sea. She praises the beauty of the space, while Garam's subtle smile hints at his deep connection to his surroundings. They sit for the interview, sharing coffee and desserts as Sungun asks about Garam's artistic journey. Garam took a thoughtful bite of his cake. "I don't remember when I started painting," he admitted softly, "but it was always there, a habit from my childhood." As he spoke, fragmented memories unfolded. While other children played together, he found solace in drawing whatever caught his eye. "Mom, look!" a small Garam exclaimed, holding up a page filled with intricate flowers. His mother's voice, warm and astonished, echoed back. "How can you draw like this without being taught?" Her praise was like sunlight breaking through the clouds. He paused, his voice heavier. "She always complimented my paintings, and it motivated me more," he said, his tone tinged with nostalgia. Sungyeon smiled gently. "She must be so proud of you now. Your art touches so many." But Garam's expression changed as he stirred his coffee absently. "She passed away when I was young," he murmured. Sungyeon's apology was immediate, but Garam brushed it off with a faint smile. "I was too young to understand back then. Adults told me she had gone somewhere she'd never be sick again. I remember the funeral vividly. My mother's friend, a kind man, offered to take me in, and the professor became my guardian. His house became my new home, though calling it that felt strange for a long time. His wife greeted me kindly but distant, their son excited and curious. They didn't replace her, but they gave me something new, a second family. If it weren't for him, I wouldn't be here today, let alone dreaming about drawing," Garam said firmly, his voice steady with gratitude. "I owe him everything. And then there's Myst. I met her because of him," he added, his gaze drifting to the painting on the wall. "Are you saying your Myst series is based on a real person?" the reporter asked. "That's correct," Garam confirmed without hesitation. "What kind of person is she?" the reporter pressed, curiosity evident in her tone. Garam paused, his expression unreadable. "Even if I told you, you wouldn't believe me," he said, almost to himself. The reporter smiled, intrigued. "Now I'm even more curious. Your story will help us understand your work better," she encouraged. Garam instinctively touched the nape of his neck, fingers brushing over a faint mark, before muttering, "Where should I start? What was your first meeting like?" she asked gently. Garam's gaze dropped as he thought back. "The first time we met, I couldn't take my eyes off her," he admitted. "It was dark, but she radiated light. My heart was pounding so fast. It felt like it might burst." The reporter, visibly amused and fascinated, chuckled. "This is so interesting." Garam looked at her, his eyes calm yet intense. "Would you like to hear our story?" he asked softly, as if inviting her into a world only he had seen. "At the age of 20, I made the decision to live independently." Professor, sitting calmly, questioned, "So, you want to live somewhere else by yourself?" "I'm 20 now. I'm an adult. It's time I stand on my own," Garam replied, determination shining in his eyes. His guardian leaned back with a thoughtful smile. "A duckling finally gathers the courage to leave the nest," he mused, ruffling Garam's hair. "All right then, let's hear your plan." Garam explained that he planned to stay in the dorms provided by the restaurant he worked at, saving money for his future. The professor, resting his chin on his hand thoughtfully, said, Garam." Garam met his gaze calmly. "Yes? You don't have to rush," the professor said gently. "I want you to become independent when you're truly ready. Why not stay here and focus on developing your talent for drawing?" But Garam shook his head. "Thank you for raising me, but I already owe you and her so much. I can't stay here forever. Seems like you've already made up your mind." "I'll respect your decision," the professor said with a sigh. Then, after a thoughtful pause, he added, "All right, let's do this." Placing his hand on his chin, he continued, "Before you leave, will you do me a favor?" "A favor?" Garam asked, tilting his head in curiosity. "There's something I need to entrust to someone reliable, and I would like it to be you," the professor said firmly. "Of course I'll do anything for you," Garam replied without hesitation. The professor's words led Garam to a vacant house in the middle of the forest. As he stood before it, memories flooded back. This was the professor's mother's home, a place where he, Jin, and the professor had spent their childhood. He remembered how she had welcomed him as if he were her own grandson. The once lively home, filled with laughter and people, now stood silent and empty after her passing. Despite this, the professor had preserved it carefully, leaving it untouched by time. The professor had tasked Garam with taking care of the house. Entering it, Garam thought about which room to use. As he explored, his eyes were drawn to a locked door. He walked over and remembered it was the grandmother's treasured room, one she had always forbidden them from entering. The lock was unusual, but after some fiddling, it clicked open. Inside was a grand powder room filled with elegant, valuable items and a large bathtub. In the corner of the room, a sand timer and a crystal orb caught his eye. Without giving it much thought, he left to fetch his luggage and settled into the room he and Jin used to share. Days passed as Garam adjusted to the quiet life. He spent his mornings caring for Boo and Aang, 2 cats who had become his companions. He cleaned, did laundry, and maintained the house, and at night, he dedicated himself to his art. One evening, while soaking in the bathtub, Garam idly picked up the sand timer. His gaze drifted to the orb beside it. Curious, he held it up, thinking, "What is this? Some kind of decoration?" As water droplets landed on the orb, it began to glow. Startled, Garam leaned closer. "It's beautiful, like a gem. Where did Grandma get this?" Suddenly, the orb flashed brightly. A face-like image appeared inside, and Garam's eyes widened in shock. The orb began to shift and change form. Panicking, he dropped it. The water in the bathtub rippled as something began to emerge. It was a shimmering, doll-like figure with its eyes closed. Slowly, its eyes opened, and it leaned toward him. "What is this? Stay away!" Garam shouted, his voice trembling. The figure opened its mouth and bit his neck. Garam screamed, the pain overwhelming him as he struggled for help. But soon, his strength faded, and he drifted into unconsciousness, slipping into the water. That was the first time they met. After some time, Garam snapped back to consciousness, opening his eyes. "Was I dreaming earlier?" he thought. His gaze shifted to the side. No, it wasn't a dream. It was that monster. He noticed the doll-like figure lying beside the tub, seemingly asleep. "Who cares?" he thought, standing to get out of the tub. But just as he was about to step out, the figure suddenly woke up and stood. Screaming, Garam bolted out of the tub, slamming the door behind him. He rushed outside, his heart racing. What was that thing? He glanced back at the door. It was quiet now. Covering himself, his hand drifted to his neck, realizing the creature had bitten him. Did it suck my blood? What if I turn into a monster, or catch some disease? The thought made him feel even hotter and dizzier. His eyes fell on a nearby broom. Gripping it tightly, he steeled himself. "Hold on, Garam. You can't faint now. If you do, it'll kill you. I have to deal with it first." Suddenly, he felt a spark on his neck. His hand shot to the spot. What is this, a mosquito bite? The sensation intensified, almost like someone was sending him a message. The message was clear, "Save me." Then, the signal changed. Now it said, "Water." Confused, Garam cautiously returned to the bathroom. He noticed all the water was gone, and the sunlight streaming in was drying the creature. If this continues, it'll die, he thought. Reluctantly, he turned on the tap to refill the tub. Quickly retreating and peeking through the door, the creature stirred, soaking up the water. "What are you?" Garam wondered, watching from the door. The creature turned toward him, and he flinched. It tried to speak, but its voice was loud and distorted. Covering his ears, he shut the door again. Later, chewing on a pastry, Garam mulled over his options. Should I call the cops? But what would I even say? They'd think I'm crazy. The idea of doing nothing gnawed at him, but he couldn't think of a better plan. Suddenly, the spark on his neck returned. This time, the message was clear. "I'm hungry." Garam tried to ignore it, but the signal grew persistent. Finally, with a heavy sigh, he grabbed the broom and slid a pastry into the room. The creature's eyes sparkled at the sight. It grabbed the pastry, and Garam noticed a hand extending toward it. He observed carefully as the creature devoured the pastry, its forehead glowing as if sending out a positive signal. It smiled at him, holding out its hand. Oh, it wants more, Garam thought. The creature rubbed its stomach, making odd noises. Seeing the red mark on its stomach, Garam realized it had fed on his blood earlier. So, I'm its host, he thought grimly. Determined, Garam resolved to cut the water supply and let it die. But before he could act, the creature sparkled again, emitting a new signal. Startled, Garam asked aloud, "You, like me?" The creature offered its hand once more. Gathering his courage, he stepped inside the room and cautiously took its hand. The moment he touched it, his whole body began to sparkle. Shocked, he let go. Am I going crazy? Or, am I being possessed by this thing? He muttered, staring at the creature in disbelief. As Garam sat outside, he wondered why the creature had stopped sending signals. Does it not need anything anymore, he thought? A pang of regret hit him. I shouldn't have woken it up. What should I do now? Should I release it into a lake or the ocean? But I don't have the strength to do it alone. And what if someone captures it? The thought left him uneasy. It said it liked me, he recalled, feeling a concern. At least I should document it somehow, he decided, reaching for his phone to take a picture. But when he looked through the camera, the creature wasn't there. He lowered the phone and looked again. It was still there in the bathtub. This is strange, he thought, his face pale with unease. Frustrated, he grabbed his sketch pad and pencil. If I can't capture it in a photo, I'll draw it instead. As Garam began sketching, sitting near the bathtub, the creature turned its gaze toward him. It suddenly flew closer, startling him. Awkwardly, he tried to avoid eye contact, but the creature leaned in, glancing at the drawing. Its expression seemed to ask, "Is that me?" "That's right, it's you," Garam replied, nodding. An idea struck him. Does telepathy work both ways? He concentrated, trying to send a signal. "What are you? Can you hear me?" But the creature didn't respond. Instead, it turned toward the glass window, seemingly captivated by its reflection. Understanding its intent, Garam fetched a mirror and placed it before the creature. As it saw itself, its forehead began to glow, emitting positive sparks. Garam interpreted this as happiness, but then it turned back to him, leaning in close, too close. His heart raced as the creature gently stroked his face with its hand. Suddenly, something remarkable happened. The blood it had absorbed from Garam began spreading through its body, transforming it. Flesh replaced its shimmering form, silver hair cascaded down, and its eyes turned the color of the sea. 2 legs formed where none had been. Garam stared, bewildered by the transformation. Only one word escaped his lips, "Angel." The creature tried to speak but only managed to produce sounds. Excitedly, it jumped, its voice too loud for Garam to bear. He covered his ears, but in its enthusiasm it slipped. Terrified, Garam lunged forward to catch it, wrapping his arms around the creature to shield it as they both tumbled into the bathtub. "You almost hurt yourself, Miss Angel," he said, panting. The creature attempted to respond, but Garam pressed a finger to its lips. "If you're about to scream again, please don't," he begged. She nodded, understanding. He looked at her, still in awe. "You're so beautiful. But how did this happen? And Miss Angel, I think you took too much of my blood," he murmured, his voice weakening. His head felt heavy, and his vision blurred. "I've been feeling sick since earlier, and now I'm at my limit." As his eyes began to close, he added, "You won't disappear when I wake up, right? I still want to draw you—" The creature panicked, slapping him lightly to wake him up. Garam's eyes fluttered open briefly as she tried to speak to him in her language. He frowned, barely able to understand. "I don't know what you're saying, but I wish you could talk like me," he muttered before fainting completely. The creature leaned close, her face just an inch from his, and something shimmering passed from his mouth to hers. Later, Garam awoke to the sound of rain. Jolting upright, he remembered the events from earlier and rushed to the powder room. Sliding open the door, he froze. It was empty. She was gone. Disheartened, he grabbed his sketchpad, clutching it tightly. "This is all I have left. I shouldn't have fallen asleep." His gaze shifted outside, where he caught sight of her. She was sitting in the rain, letting it fall on her face with a serene expression. Relief and joy flooded him. He opened his mouth to call out, but only a faint ah escaped. Alarmed, he tried again, but his voice was gone. She turned toward him with a soft smile. "Are you awake?" she asked, standing up. "I've been waiting for you to wake up." Garam stared at her in disbelief. "You can talk now? But why do I sound like this?" He paused. "Did you do something to me?" She approached him calmly. "You wished I could talk, didn't you? So, I'm borrowing your voice for a bit," she said innocently. He slumped down, frustrated. "Borrowing? But I can't talk at all now," he thought bitterly. She leaned closer and reassured him. "It'll take some time for my body to fully recover. I promise I'll give it back, okay?" As she reached out to touch his hand, Garam instinctively slapped it away. She froze for a moment before speaking gently. "Don't be mad. I swear I'll return it." Turning his back to her, he ignored her words. She hesitated, then tried again. "Are you really mad? Do you want to see something cool?" She held out a flower, blew on it, and smiled. "Isn't it cool?" Garam, unimpressed, thought to himself. "What's so great about that? I'm a mess, and it's all because of you." But she didn't seem to notice his frustration, still happily exploring her surroundings. He placed his hand on his head, sighing. "Should I laugh or cry?" he thought. As he walked back inside, he noticed the house was a complete mess. Glancing out at her again, he wondered, did the professor know about this? Later, he decided to go grocery shopping. As he was about to go, she asked, "Where are you going?" Flustered, he gestured that he needed to buy groceries. "You've eaten a week's worth of food in just a day," he thought. She looked at him with worry. "Are you leaving?" she asked softly, her expression oddly vulnerable. "I don't want to be alone. I'll come with you." "Like that? No way," he thought, gesturing wildly for her to stay at home until he returned. But as he turned to leave, she grabbed his sleeve. He turned to her. "Please take me with you," she pleaded. He sighed deeply, realizing there was no arguing with her. Covering her head and body entirely to conceal her features, he gestured for her to hold his hand and not let go. "Okay," she agreed with a bright smile. As they walked, she curiously glanced around, marveling at everything. This feels like walking a curious puppy, Garam thought, exasperated. But as the sun peeked out from the clouds, she slowed down, her steps faltering. Garam bent toward her to check on her, noticing her skin beginning to shimmer and vapor rising from her body. "Is it because of the sunlight?" he thought anxiously. Her gaze turned to the nearby ocean, and she whispered, "I want to drink all of that." Before he could respond, she slumped into his arms. Panic-stricken, he carried her back home as quickly as he could. Filling the bathtub with water, he gently laid her down. As he turned to leave, she grabbed his hand. her grip weak but insistent. Understanding her fear of being alone, he gave her hand a comforting squeeze before gesturing that he would be back soon. She nodded reluctantly, and he hurried out to finish his errands. When he returned, exhausted, he collapsed onto the floor, groceries scattered around him. She hovered above him with a beaming smile. "I was waiting for you," she said cheerfully. Seeing her back to normal, Garam sighed in relief and closed his eyes. Opening the cake box, she eagerly reached for it, but he grabbed her hand just in time. She looked at him with innocent confusion. "Can't I eat it?" He gestured firmly, signaling yes, but only one piece a day. Later, as he ate his ramen, she sat beside him, staring intently. "Can I have some?" she asked sweetly, her innocent eyes sparkling. Garam groaned inwardly. "What kind of shameless monster are you?" Turning his back to her, he tried to ignore her, but she grabbed his shoulders from behind, pulling him toward her. "Just one bite. Please, Garam," she begged. Unable to resist her pleading expression, he reluctantly handed her a spoonful. As soon as she tasted it, sparks of joy radiated from her forehead. Garam chuckled softly, realizing she liked it. Later, as he sat on the floor organizing his thoughts, he reflected on everything that had happened. "I need to manage my budget. It was fine for just me, but now I have to account for Miss Angel too. I haven't done any housework or drawing today. When I get my voice back, I'll ask her where she came from and where she needs to go. This isn't even my house. I need to help her leave, but why am I worrying about her so much?" He sighed. "She will give my voice back, right?" As night fell, she stood by the window, gazing at the stars. Turning to him, she said, "It's time. I'll return your voice now." Excited, Garam stood up, his heart racing as she approached. "Come closer," she said. She gently stroked his face and cupped it in her hands, pulling him toward her. His face turned bright red. "What, is she going to return my voice with a kiss?" he thought nervously. Seeing his trembling, she frowned. "Stay still," she said firmly, "and open your mouth." But in his flustered state, he couldn't process her words. Misinterpreting her intent, he puckered his lips, leaning closer. She immediately slapped his face. "I said, just open your mouth," she snapped. Embarrassed and flustered, Garam opened his mouth wide. In that moment, she passed a shimmering light back to him. "There you go," she said with a satisfied smile. Testing it out, Garam shouted, "Yes, I can speak now." Garam looked at her, his voice tinged with exasperation. "You know people can die from heart attacks, and you almost gave me one." She giggled at his reaction and suddenly hugged him. Startled, Garam froze, his hands flying upward in an awkward attempt not to hug her back. "I'm just saying, stop giving me heart attacks," he mumbled, his cheeks flushing slightly. He offered her a piece of cake and asked, "Now tell me, where did you come from? And why were you in that powder room in that form?" Her expression softened, and she placed the spoon down. "I'm not entirely sure," she admitted quietly. "What do you mean by that?" he asked, his brows furrowing in concern. "I'll show you," she said, and grabbed his hand gently. In an instant, fragments of her memories flooded his mind. They were fragmented and dark, like her empty eyes had been when she first emerged. "I think I've been asleep for so long that I can't remember much. If you hadn't woken me up, I might have completely disappeared, along with my memories," she explained, her voice trembling. Garam frowned, thinking deeply. "Then what do we do? Without your memories, it's hard to figure out what's next. I vaguely remember waiting for something," she said hesitantly. "Then we need to figure out what that something is. I'll help you," he said resolutely, but then hesitated. "But there's a problem." "A problem?" she asked, tilting her head curiously. "You can't stay here. This isn't my house. I was just asked to take care of it for a few months." "I don't know what to do," he admitted, rubbing the back of his neck awkwardly. Her face fell, and she asked, "I can't stay with you?" Garam sighed. "I wish you could, but you're not human, and that's beyond my control. If people see us together, they might get the wrong idea." "What kind of wrong idea?" she asked, her curiosity piqued. Looking down, Garam struggled to find the right words. Finally, he muttered, "I don't want to lie to anyone. It's complicated." Her eyes filled with a mixture of sadness and pity. Garam, avoiding her gaze, said firmly, "Tomorrow morning, I'll look for a place where you can stay safely." The next morning, Garam ventured into the forest. As he walked, he heard the sound of flowing water and followed it, eventually stumbling upon a small creek hidden among the trees. Relieved, he sighed. This could work. Meanwhile, in the city, Jin asked his mother, "Why did you make all this food?" "I don't think Garam is looking after his health properly, so I prepared some meals for him." "Honestly, why did your father send him there?" "He knows Garam will do anything he asks," she replied, packing the food into containers. Handing them to Jin, she added, "If you're not busy, could you deliver these to him?" Jin frowned. "I've got homework, and it's too far." "You can take my car," she suggested, knowing it would convince him. Reluctantly, Jin agreed. As he grabbed his bag, his mother noticed it and asked, "What's the backpack for?" "In case I stay there," he said casually. "I packed some stuff." Back at the house, Garam slid the bathroom door open quietly. She was still resting in the water. He crouched by the tub and touched the water's surface gently. Her hand emerged, grasping his. "Did you remember anything else?" he asked softly. No, not yet, she replied. There's a creek nearby, he said. I'll take you there after sunset. While I'm here, he was cut off by a loud voice calling out from outside. Brother! The shout startled them both, and Garam froze in place. His eyes widened in shock. That voice. Jin? Panic set in as Garam realized the implications. If Jin sees her like this, he'll tell his parents, and that'll lead to the professor's disappointment. I can't let that happen. I can't reveal her identity either. He stood abruptly. Stay here. Don't come out, no matter what. It's for your own safety, he instructed firmly. Before leaving, he added, if you need anything, just send me a signal. I'll come back as fast as I can. Steeling himself, Garam stepped outside to face Jin, who was standing there with packed bags in his hands. What's all this? Garam asked as he eyed the containers Jin was carrying. Mom made it for you, and I drove all the way here to deliver it, Jin replied with a grin. You should have told me in advance, Garam insisted. Jin raised an eyebrow. What's with that expression? You don't look happy to see me. Of course, I'm happy, Garam replied quickly. But I just feel guilty. She doesn't have to go through all this trouble for me. If you feel guilty, then just call her. She misses you, Jin retorted, brushing off Garam's protests. As they entered the house, Garam asked, what about your classes? They're cancelled. I'm free all day, Jin replied excitedly. Really, Garam said, his mind racing. I'm screwed. It's just a matter of time before he finds out. Desperate, he added, Jin, it's been a while since we've hung out. How about we go out somewhere? Yeah, we can do that, Jin replied enthusiastically. Where do you want to go? The beach? I'll drive. Later, as they sat in the car, Garam clung to his seat, praying for his safety as Jin drove like a maniac. This guy is going to send us both to the afterlife, he thought. At the beach, Jin ran to enjoy the water, while Garam stayed behind, silently strategizing about how to send Jin back home as soon as possible. As they sat for lunch, Garam noted that Myst hadn't sent him any signals. She should be fine for now, he thought, trying to ease his worries. Jin interrupted his thoughts. Isn't it hard living here alone? If you're feeling lonely, I can stay with you on weekends. No, I'm fine. I don't feel lonely at all, Garam blurted out, his tone a bit too sharp. Realizing how he sounded, he quickly added, what I mean is, you don't have to worry. I've been busy drawing every day, so I don't have time to feel lonely. You started drawing again? Jin asked. Yeah. I want to draw as much as I can before the professor comes back. After that, I'll have to find a place of my own, Garam explained. You're moving out? Why? Jin asked, frowning. I want to be independent. I've already told the professor, Garam said. But you never told me, Jin complained. I was going to... Later, Garam admitted sheepishly. Later? You always push important things to later, Jin said, his frustration growing. I thought you weren't going to worry about everything alone anymore. To lighten the tension, Jin ordered more soju. Garam sighed. You can't drink. You have class tomorrow. I'm not going anywhere, Jin said firmly, pouring a glass. Garam started sweating. What do I do now? He thought anxiously. Meanwhile, back at the house, Myst grew restless, waiting for Garam. She eventually stepped outside but immediately began drying out under the harsh sunlight. At the beach, Garam poured another drink for Jin. We're not strangers, Garam. We lived under the same roof for 10 years. Yet you're moving out without even telling me. I knew you'd react like this, which is why I was trying to ease you into the news, Garam replied, sipping his drink nervously. Cut the crap, Jin snapped, the alcohol loosening his tongue. I mean nothing to you, do I? That's why you never discuss important things with me. I thought we were more than brothers, but I guess that's just in my head. That's not true, Garam said anxiously, holding out his glass for another pour. He's making me drunk with him. At this rate, I'll pass out before I can take him back. And that's exactly what happened. Garam's memory of the evening blurred as the alcohol took over. What he did remember was Jin, drunk and emotional, leaning in and saying, You know I love you, right? So don't leave me, okay? Startled, Garam's eyes flew open. Just shut up and sleep, or I'll knock you out myself, he barked. When they finally returned to the house, Garam's plan was simple. Get Jin to bed and take Myst to the creek. But when he opened the door, Myst stood there, her form ghastly and dried out, her appearance terrifying in the dim light. Garam screamed in shock, waking Jin, who immediately started screaming as well. In their panic, they clung to each other, unsure of what to do. Garam tried to shield Jin's eyes to prevent him from seeing too much. Myst, realizing the commotion, raised her hand and released a sparkling light that struck Jin's forehead. With a loud thud, Jin collapsed, unconscious. Myst lowered her hand, looking at it in surprise. She had rediscovered an ability she didn't remember possessing. As Garam laid Jin in bed, he sighed heavily, wiping his forehead. I thought he was dead. Oh my god, I almost had a heart attack. Myst peeked through the door, her wide eyes meeting Garam's tired but irritated gaze. Turning toward her, Garam whispered angrily, What was that? Scaring people is your specialty now? And what was that water thing? Haven't I told you not to come out? Myst lowered her head, fidgeting with her fingers. I'm sorry. I got anxious when you didn't come back, she said softly. Garam placed both hands on his head, exasperated. You need to get used to staying alone. What will you do at the creek if you can't handle it here? If I get kicked out of this house, I can't help you. I just hope Jin doesn't remember any of this. Myst nodded, her gaze dropping to the floor, saying nothing. Suddenly, Garam remembered how pale and dry she had looked earlier. By the way, are you okay? You didn't look good earlier, he asked, concern creeping into his voice. I'm fine now, she said, and I put on the clothes you gave me. Garam rubbed his temples. Good, just give me some time to rest, and then we'll go to the creek, he said, slumping onto the floor. Myst sat beside him, watching him quietly before asking, Who is that guy? Garam sighed. He's my brother and my friend. His dad owns this house, he explained. I see, Myst said thoughtfully. But why can't he find out about me? Garam tried his best to explain, fumbling over the complexities of the human world and why Myst's existence had to remain hidden. But as expected, she didn't quite understand. Tired, he waved it off. Forget it. Just assume it's better that way, he muttered. Anyway, why were you waiting outside? Myst hesitated. When I thought you weren't coming back, I felt weird, she admitted. Weird? Can you show me? Garam asked, raising his hand. Myst held his hand, sharing her feelings with him. Garam's eyes softened as he felt the heavy sensation she described. I know this feeling. I've felt it before too, he said. You do? When? Myst asked, tilting her head. Garam stood and grabbed a photo from the shelf. He showed it to her. This is my mom, he said, pointing to the woman in the picture. She's the one who gave birth to me, and this kid is me when I was little. Myst blinked at the photo. But how can that be you? You're standing right here? She asked, confused. Garam chuckled faintly. It's called a photo. I'll explain later. Anyway, she passed away when I was young. That feeling you just shared, I felt it the day I came home from school and found her gone. I rushed to her room, afraid I'd been left behind. That kind of worry weighed on me for a long time. Sometimes my chest would hurt because of it. Does it hurt now? Myst asked quietly. Not the same way, Garam said, shaking his head. But sometimes it does, in a different way. I must be drunk to share this with you. But I think you've been separated from your family too. Really? Do you think so? Myst asked, her voice tinged with hope. It's possible, Garam said. Do you remember if anyone called you by a name? Myst shook her head. No. What about you? Do you have a name? My name is Garam Lee. You can call me Garam, he replied. Garam, she repeated, testing the sound. Her soft voice saying his name caught him off guard, and he stared at her for a moment. Because just for a second, it almost sounded like the voice of his mother, the one he'd missed for so long. It sounds nice, he murmured. I also want to call you by a name. How about Myst? Myst, she said, her face lighting up. Fireworks-like sparks shot from her head, signaling her delight. I guess that's a yes, Garam said with a small smile. Let's go now. Later, Garam sat outside, waiting for Myst to get ready. As he leaned back, tired from the day, a photo frame in his lap slipped to the ground. Myst approached, noticing Garam's closed eyes and the tears that had streaked his cheeks while he rested. She softly patted his head. Garam, does it hurt a lot? She asked gently. She hesitated before murmuring, Let's wait a little longer. But you have to wake up soon, okay? The next morning, Jin woke up groggily, rubbing his head. What happened yesterday? He heard the sound of water running from the powder room and assumed it was Garam. Sliding the door open, he froze. Through the curtain, he saw the silhouette of a woman. Shocked and embarrassed, he quickly slammed the door shut. Sorry, he shouted, face burning red. Panicked, he rushed to Garam's room and shook him awake. Who is that woman? In the bathroom? Half asleep, Garam groggily mumbled, What woman? Realization struck him like lightning. He bolted out of bed and ran to the bathroom, sliding the curtain open. There stood Myst, holding a water bottle and cape he'd given her. Why are you still here? He asked in a hushed but frantic voice. You fell asleep, she replied quietly. Feeling guilty, she added, I'm sorry, Garam. You said the Jin person can't find out about me. No, Miss Angel, it's not your fault. It's because of me we're in this mess. Garam sighed. She blinked. Garam, why are you calling me Miss Angel? You already gave me a name. His memory from the previous night came rushing back. Right. We decided to be friends, he said, rubbing his head. If you want, I can put that Jin person to sleep again, Myst suggested, raising her glowing fingers. No, no, no! Garam waved his hands frantically. There's no need to be violent. So, she's your friend? Jin asked, startling Garam. Desperately trying to stay calm, Garam replied. Yes, that's correct. Thinking quickly, Garam grabbed some sketches nearby. I met her after moving here, and she's been modeling for me. See? Jin said, smirking and raising an eyebrow. You were able to ask someone to do that? It wasn't easy, Garam replied stiffly. I've heard art school students do that, so I guess you're really serious about drawing, Jin said, looking at the sketches. His expression changed when he noticed something odd. Why does it seem like your model is not dressed in these drawings? So that's what you mean when you said you weren't lonely. It's not like that. Stop it and give those back, Garam said, snatching the sketches away. Jin, clearly enjoying Garam's distress. Judging by how flustered you are, I can tell you're hiding something. Garam's mind raced as Jin wrapped an arm around his shoulder. Come on, be honest. Who is she? Jin pressed. She's a friend, Garam answered firmly. Fine, Jin said with a smirk, holding up his phone. Let me give Mom and Dad an update. No, wait, what do you want? Garam asked nervously. Nothing much. Just introduce her to me, Jin teased. You must be really close if she's here first thing in the morning. Okay, but promise you won't tell the professor. I don't want any misunderstandings. Garam relented. We'll see about that, Jin said, heading toward the kitchen. I'm gonna freshen up. Meet me there for some ramen. As soon as Jin left, Garam dashed back to the powder room. Standing outside the curtain, he whispered, Myst, are you dressed? Those clothes might smell since they were in storage, but I couldn't give you mine without making Jin suspicious. I like these clothes, she replied from behind the curtain. Good. If you're ready, you can come out, he said. Myst stepped out, and for a moment, Garam was frozen in place. When I saw Myst, I felt something unfamiliar stirring in my heart. Something I'd never felt before. The reporter's voice cuts through the memory. What kind of feeling was it? Garam's expression turned serious, his eyes reflecting the intensity of that emotion. I wanted her. Am I wearing it right? Myst asked innocently, looking like an ethereal being in the simple clothes he had given her. And that might have been the moment I decided to draw Myst. His voice grew darker. At least, the Myst in my paintings would be mine alone. Because I was the one who woke her up, and my blood turned her human, I felt possessive of her. I didn't want anyone else to see her. Because if they did, they'd feel the same way I did. I hated the thought that I couldn't be the only one for her. Greed consumed me, but at the same time, I knew it wasn't right. Myst shined like no one, and everything about her was smooth and slippery, nothing like human. And that reminded me that I should not feel this way towards her, so I brought myself back and pretended that I felt nothing. Garam averted his eyes. We should cover your hair, he said firmly. And before you meet Jin, there are a few things you should know, he added. What things? She asked curiously. He's very talkative, so he might ask you a bunch of questions. If he asks you something, just pretend you don't get it. How do I do that? She asked, confused. Simple, Garam demonstrated, raising his arms and shrugging with a clueless expression. Or just shake your head like this, Myst giggled. What about my name? Can I tell him about that? Garam hesitated but nodded. Sure, you can tell him your name. Peeking into the kitchen, Myst's eyes sparkled. Garam, I smell ramen. Garam immediately shook his head. Sorry, but you can't have any. Why not? She asked, disappointed. If you like it and fireworks start shooting from your head, all our hard work will be wasted, he explained, dead serious. Myst pouted but nodded reluctantly. Hey, Jin, she's here, Garam said, entering the kitchen with Myst following closely behind. Jin raised an eyebrow. Why is she all bundled up, he thought, noticing her covered appearance. With a friendly smile, Jin introduced himself. Hello, nice to meet you. I'm Garam's brother, Jin. Myst stayed silent, shifting nervously. Jin nudged Garam. Why isn't she saying anything? She's shy, Garam whispered back quickly. What's your name? Jin asked, prompting her. My name is Myst, she blurted loudly. Jin flinched. Why are you yelling? You're not mad that I asked, right? The room fell into an awkward silence for a moment. As they sat at the table, Jin said, I made 4 bowls of ramen. But since you can't eat, I feel kind of bad eating without you. The delicious aroma was too tempting for Myst. She pulled down the cape, covering her nose, unintentionally revealing her face. Jin's eyes widened in shock. What the heck? She's insanely pretty. He glanced at Garam, thinking, I thought Garam was a social recluse. How did he meet someone this beautiful in such a rural place? He kicked Garam under the table. What? Garam whispered, annoyed. You never told me she was a foreigner, Jin whispered back. I don't know what you're talking about, Garam replied, feigning ignorance. We'll talk later, Jin muttered. So, Myst, where do you live? Myst, remembering Garam's instructions, shook her head and shrugged her shoulders. How did you meet Garam? Jin asked again. She shook her head again, indicating she didn't understand. Thinking she didn't know the language, Jin raised his hand for a handshake. Since you're Garam's friend, we'll see each other more often. Let's be friends. Myst hesitated, but then gently squeezed his fingers, unsure what a handshake meant. Garam gasped, looking at their holding hands, quickly separating their hands. That's enough. Let's eat, he said sharply. As they ate, Garam reminded Jin, You have class this afternoon, so you'd better leave early. Jin gave him a knowing look. I can see right through you, you know. As he got ready to leave, he asked Garam, She's not just your model, is she? Tell me more about her. I want to protect her privacy, Garam said firmly. Fair enough, Jin replied. But I've never seen anyone as beautiful as her. He glanced back at the house, waving at Myst. She's like an artist's muse, Jin added thoughtfully. She's not my muse, and I'm not even a real artist, Garam retorted. You say that, but she's your model. So that makes her your muse, Jin teased, smiling as Myst waved back at him. Garam couldn't help but smile lightly, watching her. As Jin opened the car door, he added, I won't tell Mom and Dad, so don't worry. Thanks, Garam replied. But when midterms are over, let's hang out more. I want to know more about Myst, Jin said before getting into the car. Okay, drive safely, Garam called out. Watching Jin's car disappear down the road, Garam thought, I know it's wrong. But if Jin is going to keep it a secret, then he rushed back inside. Really? I can stay with you? Myst asked, her face lighting up with joy. For now, Garam replied. Thank you, she exclaimed, hugging him tightly. But you have to do as I say, Garam warned. Okay, I'll do whatever you say, she promised eagerly. He took a deep breath. Then, I have one request, Myst. Will you be my muse? What Garam wanted the first time he saw her was to draw her. So he asked if she'd let him, and Myst happily agreed, even though she didn't quite understand what it meant to be someone's muse. Living with Myst was surprisingly convenient. Because of her superpower, housework had become much easier. They teamed up, working efficiently on chores. Myst was like a machine with her water powers, and the days they spent together were genuinely enjoyable. One day, while looking around the house, Myst found some music records and asked Garam about them. Garam pulled out an old CD and said it might have belonged to the professor. He set it up to see if it still worked. As the beat kicked in, Myst's eyes lit up. Her body started bouncing with the rhythm. She couldn't help herself. She started dancing, even though she didn't know what dancing really was. Amused, Garam quickly grabbed a sheet of paper and a pen, trying to capture her movements in a sketch. Still dancing, Myst asked curiously, "What's it like?" Drawing? Such a simple question, yet he couldn't answer right away. He had started drawing because his mom praised him for it. Then it became a habit, a second nature. He drew everything he saw. But one day he realized all his drawings were just fragments of a time he wanted to forget. Hospital flowers, IV drips, pills, worn sneakers. All the memories he had tried so hard to leave behind. After that, he stopped drawing for a long time. Until one day, a classmate saw one of his old drawings at school and asked for a portrait for her birthday. He did it. But even then, he still wasn't sure what drawing meant to him. Even now, he didn't have the answer. But one thing was clear. He wanted to draw Myst. Not because someone asked him to, not to be praised, but because he wanted to remember her. One day, they might have to say goodbye. The person Myst was looking for could appear, or her memories might return. And when that day came, she'd leave. So Garam wanted to preserve these moments. He needed to draw her, because somehow, he couldn't capture her on camera. Myst tilted her head. "What do you mean, capture me? Will I be stored inside those frames?" Garam struggled to explain. "People take pictures to keep a moment, so they can look back and relive it," he said. "But when I tried to take your picture, it didn't work." Even though now he was sure she wasn't just visible to him, Jin could see her too, even touch her. She still didn't show up in pictures. She felt almost like a real person now. His thoughts wandered, and he quickly pulled his hand back, scolding himself silently for having any inappropriate thoughts. Myst looked at the sketch he'd made. "It doesn't look like me," she complained. Feeling a little defensive, Garam replied, "It's just a doodle. It'll look better once I finish it." To prove it, he even showed her an old painting he'd done of the ocean. Myst, intrigued, started trying to paint on her own. Garam helped her, and even told her he wanted to publish a whole series of drawings featuring her, for others to see. Myst blinked. "But, didn't you say before you didn't want people to see me?" Garam laughed softly. "It's not like they'll see the real you. They'll just think you're a made-up character, something from my imagination." The next day, Garam found Myst outside, fighting with Boo, the cat. She was apparently in some sort of competition with it. If Boo hissed, she would hiss right back. Panicking, Garam rushed toward them. "Myst, you can't eat Boo just because he hissed at you." Myst looked at him innocently, but in that moment of distraction, Boo scratched her cheek. Later, Garam sat outside, inspecting her face for the scratch. But somehow, it was gone. No mark, no scar. It was like she had healed herself completely. That was a relief. But then those impure thoughts crept in again, and Garam silently scolded himself. "She's not even human," he reminded himself. "You need to get your head straight, meditate or something." Then he remembered something. "Wait, why were you out in the garden anyway?" Myst suddenly ran back outside and pointed at the sky. "I'm going to defeat that thing," she declared, pointing directly at the sun. Garam raised an eyebrow. "You're going to defeat the sun?" He knew the truth behind her condition, but played along. "All right, how about we at least test your stamina in the sunlight, see how long you can stay out there." And so the experiment began. At first, Myst looked fine, confident even. But after just 5 minutes, steam began to rise around her. Garam grew worried. What if she disappears from this? As more time passed, Myst's face turned pale, strained. Her legs wobbled. Alarmed, Garam shouted, "Myst! Stop! That's enough!" But she stayed rooted, determined. "If I can beat the sun, I can go outside with you more, spend more time with you." That determination didn't last long. Her body gave out, and she collapsed onto the ground. Garam ran over with a bottle of water. "Drink this. Hurry." She finally looked a little better. Garam sighed and asked, So you really did all this? Just to spend more time with me? Isn't that kind of a silly reason to risk your life? It's important to me, Garam, she growled back. He let out a soft laugh and pulled her into a hug. All right, let's get inside. Myst rested her head on his chest for a moment, listening to the loud thump of his heartbeat, something Garam tried to hide but clearly failed to. Later, he suggested she rest in the powder room for the day. I'll handle the chores, he said. But while inside, Myst's eyes landed on a jar. Inside it, more crystal balls. One's just like her. Excited, she ran to show Garam. Seeing them, Garam blinked in surprise. I almost forgot. There were 6 others in here. Myst looked up at him. Can we wake them up? Garam frowned slightly. I'm not sure that's a good idea. We don't know what might happen. Myst's face fell. But if we don't wake them up, won't they just stay trapped in the dark like I was? It's not that simple, he said gently. Waking them up could lead to the unknown. Maybe I have a family too, Garam. Just like you, she whispered. Then she looked at the marbles and quietly apologized to them, promising to wake them, if Garam allowed it. He scratched his head. I'm not a bad person, but you don't want to wake them up? Myst asked, eyes sad. Garam rubbed the back of his neck. How is anyone supposed to say no to that face? Instead of answering, he started sketching the marbles, capturing their size, color, every little detail. Myst noticed they were wrapped in plastic and asked, why are they like that? So they don't get wet, Garam replied. Her expression fell again. You really don't want to wake them up, she murmured, sitting quietly on the edge of the tub, eyes cast down. Then Garam finally asked the question that had been on his mind. When you woke up, why did you take my blood? Myst looked at him. She didn't answer with words. Instead, she reached out and held his hand. And in that moment, Garam felt her answer. She had turned into a marble when her life was in danger. Inside it, she had sealed herself with only the tiniest amount of water. But the thirst was unbearable. She lost her memories and felt like her life was truly ending. Then, one day, she heard his voice. Just a few drops of water, but to her, it was like an oasis. With all the will she had left, she used her final strength to break out of the marble. But even the water in the bathtub wasn't enough. The environment was strange, unfamiliar. Then she saw him, a human, someone who clearly belonged here, out of pure survival instinct. She drank his blood. Told him all this before. She was scared, afraid Garam would be frightened and distance himself from her. Of course, Garam had been scared at the time, but now, knowing the truth, that she only did it to survive, he couldn't hold it against her. After all, he knew what it felt like to be completely alone. He had been like that once. Painting was what kept him going. He gently reassured her. I'm not afraid of you. Not when you're this honest. He also added, you're a living being. I have no right to stop you from waking the others. I just need a little time to think things through. Then he suggested, let's go to the creek after sunset. There'll be plenty of water. It'll be a better environment for them. Hearing that, Myst was overwhelmed. She threw her arms around him in a hug. Thank you, Garam. I'm really happy I met you. She pulled back slightly, looking up at him. Garam, trying to keep himself composed, quickly covered his eyes. Yeah, me too, he replied shyly. That night, just as they had planned, Garam and Myst set out on their way to the creek. Garam was quietly hopeful. If even one of Myst's kind could remember their past, then maybe they'd finally learn where Myst came from. But Myst was worried. What if they don't remember anything? She asked. That thought unsettled Garam. If they didn't remember, then they might all cling to him just like Myst did. And while Myst promised to help, Garam wasn't sure how he'd handle everything. He had his own problems, too. Deciding they'd deal with it when the time came, they continued toward the river in silence. Once they arrived, Garam suggested carefully, let's awaken them one at a time, okay? Myst nodded. As instructed, she pulled out one of the crystal balls and placed it gently into the river water. The moment it touched the surface, the water lit up, flashing in bright colors that matched the crystal. But then, the crystal cracked. Its pieces scattered and drifted away with the flow of the river. Myst's hope shattered along with it. Garam stood there, watching. He didn't quite understand what was happening. Myst couldn't wait. Panic rising, she hurried to place the rest into the water, one after another. But the result was always the same. Each one broke. Each one vanished, washed away down the river in broken pieces. Myst slumped into the water, stunned. It was the first time she had ever witnessed death. Garam rushed in after her, sitting beside her. Myst, what happened? She looked at him with teary eyes. They were already dead, Garam, she whispered, breaking into tears. Only one tiny marble remained now. She didn't want to lose that one too, so she held on to it, refusing to let it go. Garam wrapped his arms around her, trying to comfort her, give her the strength to keep going. On the way back, Myst looked at him and quietly asked, What should I do now? Where should I go? Garam gently answered, We'll figure it out. I'll be on your side. I'll help you however I can. But Myst looked down sadly. She knew the truth. Garam wouldn't stay here forever. One day, he'd have to leave this place. And she couldn't even survive under the sun for long. She wasn't human. "Will you still stay by my side then?" she asked softly. Garam didn't respond. When they returned home, Myst went straight to the powder room. Garam let out a sigh, ruffling his hair. In the end, he couldn't answer her. He didn't want to give her a promise he couldn't keep. If he were rich, maybe he could have done more to help her. But he wasn't. And with that thought, his heart grew heavier. After freshening up, Garam stood outside the powder room. The lights were off. He was worried. After going through such a traumatic experience, would she be okay? He stood there for a while, but still couldn't find the courage to open the door. Inside, Myst was curled up in the bathtub, quietly speaking to the tiniest crystals she had left. She had so many questions. What were their relationships? Friends? Family? Where did they come from? But it was too late now. She blamed herself for not finding them sooner, and apologized for being the only one to wake up. As she continued her quiet goodbyes, her telepathic signals floated into the air, nowhere specific to go. Eventually, they reached Garam, the one closest to her at that moment. He felt it, the pain she was feeling. And that gave him the courage to finally close the distance between them. He slid the door open. "Can I come in?" he asked. Myst quickly wiped her tears and sat up. "Yeah." Then, noticing what he was holding, she blinked. "Wait, why do you have your pillow and blanket with you?" Meanwhile, elsewhere, a man sat near the riverbank, grumbling. His friends had told him he could catch fresh fish here. Suddenly, he felt a pull on his line. Something was caught, but then, in one swift motion, the figure in the water yanked it back. The man's eyes widened as an alien figure emerged from the river. "So humans are still as violent as before," the figure thought grimly. "I never intended to return here." As it approached, the man screamed for help, but no one was around to hear. "Back at the house," Garam explained. "I was worried, so I thought it might be better if I stayed with you." Then, hesitating, he added, "But maybe you'd rather be alone." Before he could turn to leave, Myst raised her hand to stop him. "Can you stay, if you don't mind?" Without a second thought, Garam rushed toward her and grabbed her hand. "Of course, Myst. That's the least I can do for you." But then his eyes caught something strange. "Why are there black beads coming out of your eyes?" Myst touched her face, confused. "I don't know. They just keep coming. And your presence is making it worse. There were so many black beads." How much had she cried? Garam's chest ached watching her like this. He held her close, letting her cry until she calmed down. After a while, still holding her hand, he gently asked, "Were you upset with me earlier? On the way back?" "Why would I be upset with you, Garam?" she replied. "Because you asked me if I could stay by your side, and I didn't answer." Myst shook her head. "No, I wasn't upset. And I've decided, whatever happens, I'll accept my fate. Because I don't want to be left alone again." Garam sat up, his tone worried. "Are you saying you don't care if you turn back into a marble?" Myst didn't respond, but her expression said enough. He grabbed her hand firmly. "Okay, I understand how you feel. But that's not right. I'll help you. I don't want to be a burden." "You've already done enough for me," she said softly. "Then let's leave together," Garam said. "Once I leave this place, I'll take you with me. I'll do my best to protect you." There was something about Myst that made Garam reckless, unable to stay still. Meanwhile, the figure by the river shifted its form into a human one. It felt sorrow for those who didn't survive like he did, but there was still one. He could sense the signal. Faint, unclear, but real. "Stay safe," he silently prayed. "Just hold on until I find you." More than anything, he hoped that the sending signal hadn't yet been discovered by humans. And, with that thought, he walked away from the river. And, from the messy, blood-stained tent. Back at home, Myst didn't respond to Garam's proposal about living together. Garam looked at her anxiously. "You're not thinking of disappearing just like that, are you?" But still, she stayed silent. In the end, maybe that silence was her answer. That night, they lay side by side, Myst curled up in the bathtub, Garam on the floor just outside it. He stared at the ceiling, wondering how to change her mind. But then he asked himself, what would he do if he were in her place? The thought alone scared him. He didn't even want to imagine it. He sat up, eyes tearful. That's when it hit him. There really was no way to console someone who's hurting. His offer. Maybe it was only to comfort himself. Behind him, Myst slowly sat up in the tub. "Garam," she called softly. He turned to look at her, his eyes now wet with tears. Realizing it too late, he quickly turned his face away. "What is it? Are you crying?" she asked, leaning to peek around his shoulder. He tried to hide it, rubbing at his eyes. "I'm not," he mumbled. Then, remembering she had called him for something, he cleared his throat. "Anyway, why did you call? Do you need something?" Myst looked down. "It's just... I felt something strange, Garam. Like someone touched my telepathy signals." Elsewhere, the figure also felt it, a mix of red signals within the flow. Years ago, someone had sent out a signal like this. He'd traveled to save them. But by the time he arrived, the signal had already disappeared. There was nothing he could do. But now, if it really was the same kind of signal, how had they managed to survive in a world so dangerous for their kind? As he wandered further, he spotted a drunk man near the village, yelling at his dog. The man, holding a bottle, threatened the frightened animal. "If you don't behave like I say, I swear I'll—" He raised his hand, ready to strike. But before he could, someone grabbed his wrist, stopping him mid-motion. The man blinked, confused, staring at the figure who now stood in front of him. He couldn't even tell if it was a man or woman. "Let go of me!" the drunk man shouted. The figure narrowed its eyes. "I'd rather not touch something filthy like you, but it would be best if you stopped hurting that animal. I'm its owner. I can do whatever I want," the man spat. The figure's grip tightened, so hard it sent pain shooting through the man's bones. He dropped to the ground, groaning in agony. "Does it hurt?" the figure asked coldly. Without waiting for an answer, it grabbed the man's head. "I can't stand humans like you," it whispered, beginning to pull energy from his body. But just then, the dog stepped between them, eyes pleading, whimpering at the figure as if begging for mercy. Looking into the dog's eyes, the figure finally relented. It released the man and turned away, vanishing into the darkness. Behind, the dog gently nudged its unconscious owner, whimpering softly. "Are you saying someone intercepted your signal?" Garam asked. "Does that mean one of your kind woke up?" Myst nodded. "Then let's go check," he said, getting up. But Myst grabbed his hand. "Wait. It didn't feel like it came from the creek where we released them. It felt far away." Garam nodded thoughtfully. "That's possible. They might have been carried downriver. But if someone's really woken up, then we need to find out who it is." Myst looked at him. He was right. She gave a firm nod. "Let's hurry." As they left, Myst pointed upward and told Garam that the signals were just above them. But no matter how hard he looked, he couldn't see anything. "How long do they stay?" he asked. "Usually, they disappear quickly," Myst replied. "But since this one hasn't, I think it's because my signals change depending on my mood, the length, the color, even the duration. It all depends on how I feel." Garam found that oddly fascinating. Her feelings taking a physical form, something others could actually feel. "Isn't that really mystical?" he murmured to himself. Though they hoped the signal came from someone who had awakened from one of the crystal balls, there was always a possibility it could be someone, or something, entirely different. But they could worry about that later. For now, their focus was on finding whoever it was. They soon arrived near the creek. Garam asked Myst to lead the way, but before they could go any further, his foot slipped on the slope. He slid down the path and landed hard on the rocks below. "Garam!" Myst cried out, rushing after him. He sat up, still in shock. "I'm fine," he said, not even realizing the injury. Myst's eyes widened. "Fine? Garam, your foot is covered in blood." Only then did he look down and realize how bad it was. Still, he tried to stay strong and pushed himself to stand. But the pain was too much. He collapsed again. Panic set in. "How are we even going to get home like this?" Myst looked at him, worried, then turned around and lowered herself. "Garam, get on. I'll take you back." He stared at her, embarrassed. "What? No way. I'd rather crawl." "Just get on, Garam," she snapped, her voice sharp with urgency. Elsewhere, the figure caught the red signal again, stronger this time. That meant the sender was in danger. He had to find them. Quickly. Back at home, Garam sat on the floor treating his wound. Myst stood beside him, clearly worried. "It's bleeding so much. Are you really okay?" "I'm fine," Garam said. "Sorry. Because of me, we had to stop our search." But Myst shook her head. "No. It's my fault. If it wasn't for me, you wouldn't have gotten hurt." And just like that, their apologies bounced back and forth, each blaming themselves for the other. Finally, they decided to wait until Garam's ankle healed before continuing the search. As Myst turned to leave, Garam called out to her. "If you need anything, just send a signal to me, okay?" She smiled and nodded, thankful for everything he'd done. After a quick shower, Garam noticed a fresh injury on his right arm. Not ideal, especially for drawing, but what was done was done. He dried his hair casually and walked into the living room. His eyes landed on a picture frame on the table, an old photo of him and his mother. His chest tightened. The emotions welled up again. Just then, he felt a soft ping on his neck. Myst's signal. He rushed toward the bathroom. "Myst? Did you call me?" he asked, slightly out of breath. She smiled and nodded. "I don't know why, but I feel calm when I hold your hand." He didn't hesitate. Lying beside the bathtub again, he reached out and held her hand. Grateful, she looked at him. "Is there anything I can do for you?" "There is one thing," he said quietly. "No matter what happens, please don't disappear. If you do, I'll have a hard time." The pain of losing someone, he'd felt that before, when his mother left. He didn't want to go through it again. "Even if you're not human, and you don't remember anything, we can still make new memories," he said, sitting up straighter. "New memories? With you?" Myst asked, tilting her head. "Okay, I'll do it." Then she hesitated. "But, are you sure I won't be a burden to you?" "You won't be," Garam said. "And soon you'll learn things. You'll blend in with people naturally." He spoke with hope. Elsewhere, the red signals the figure had been tracking suddenly vanished. Even worse, the sun was almost up. He knew he couldn't survive in this sunlight, so for now he turned back and returned to the river, waiting for the sun to go down again. Inside the village, the mother of the man who had gone fishing wandered around, looking for her son. She muttered to herself in frustration, "Why isn't he picking up my calls?" Eventually, she found the tent she had been searching for. Peeking inside, her eyes widened. Her son was lying there, and there was blood on the ground. Panicked, she fell to the ground. Was he dead? After calming herself down, she crawled inside and tried to wake him. After a while, the man stirred. Dazed, he sat up and finally recognized her. "Mom? What are you doing here?" she yelled. "What am I doing here? How are you so calm when someone is dead?" She told him the man who always used to abuse his dog was found dead now, and she had seen the blood near her son. Her suspicion was clear. "How can you say that?" he shouted, hurt and angry. She sighed deeply. "Just clean up this mess and come home, and if anyone asks, tell them you were home last night. Understand?" Completely unaware of the chaos elsewhere, Myst and Garam slept peacefully into the late morning after the crazy night before. When Garam's eyes finally opened, he blinked a few times and realized Myst was still sleeping beside him. He froze, startled. Why is she sleeping so close? But seeing her so calm, he decided not to wake her. She was upset last night. Let her rest. As he looked at her, he couldn't help but admit she was beautiful. If she were a human woman, she'd probably be really popular, maybe even an actress or a model. And if that were the case, she'd definitely be way out of his league. He reached out and gently brushed some hair away from her face. The feeling inside him stirred again. But she's not human, he reminded himself. These feelings, they're not supposed to be happening. He clenched his jaw slightly. He needed to hold himself back, because deep down, he knew he shouldn't be feeling this way in the first place. Later, Garam started Myst's social adaptation program. She had to learn basic things like reading, writing, and simple math operations. Myst was incredibly motivated to learn all these human things. Garam also suggested she watch videos to learn more. Myst was completely fascinated by the strange box-like machine that showed moving people. Watching her wide-eyed reactions, Garam smiled to himself. She's going to be even more amazed once she experiences more of the human world. Myst was eager to absorb everything. But soon, Garam realized introducing her to the laptop had been a huge mistake. She stared at the screen constantly, watching videos late into the night, skipping sleep. Even during dinner, her eyes stayed glued to the screen. Garam tried to convince her to sleep. "Come on, Myst, you need rest. Just one more video, please," she begged. One day while eating watermelon, Garam tried to explain to her that skipping sleep and meals wasn't good. But suddenly, Myst looked up and asked, "Garam, what is love?" He paused mid-bite. "Huh? Where's that coming from?" she continued, eyes sparkling with curiosity. "Is giving your life for someone love? Throwing yourself into danger for someone, is that love, Garam?" He stared at her, stunned. "Yep, it's official. I need to confiscate the laptop." Suddenly, Myst flopped to the floor. "Myst, what happened?" Garam panicked, rushing to her side. She kept her eyes closed and said dramatically, "Garam, I'm a sleeping beauty. You have to kiss me to wake me up." "A loving kiss, Garam." He blinked. "What?" "A loving kiss," she repeated, peeking at him with one eye. "Where did you even get that from? Do you even know what a kiss is?" he asked, shaking her gently. "Yes. It's something that breaks the curse," she said, still playing along. "What curse?" "The curse placed by the witch who made me lose my memory." "Maybe your kiss will lift it," she said, leaning back into his arms with a pout. This was driving Garam nuts. He didn't know where she got all this from. But should he just go along with it? He reached out, lifted her chin gently. "Okay, just once." He leaned closer, their lips just inches apart, then suddenly placed his hand over her mouth instead. "There, that's your kiss." Myst sat up, eyes wide. "What? That's not a kiss." "I probably know more than you what a kiss is," Garam said, flustered. "Then do it with your lips," she insisted. "Well, that requires a bit of preparation," he muttered, face turning red. "You kiss someone when you really love them. Then are you saying, you don't love me?" she asked innocently. "No, I do love you," he blurted out, then froze. "What the heck am I saying? Love? Seriously?" He quickly picked up a watermelon slice. "Here, just eat this. And stop watching those fairy tales, they're not real." "But you didn't answer my question." "Don't you love me?" she asked again, worried. Right then, his phone rang. Grateful for the interruption, he rushed to answer it, taking the chance to escape. It was Jin, asking if Garam was coming home on Saturday. "Yeah, I'll come in the morning." "Then we'll go get a present," Garam said, suddenly remembering it was their mother's birthday. Meanwhile, Myst watched him from a distance, still confused. "He said he doesn't love me, but when I held his hand, I could clearly feel that he does." A few minutes later, Garam returned, slightly out of breath. "Hey, Myst, I'll be going out on Saturday, okay?" But she turned away, sulking, acting like a moody girlfriend. Soon Saturday came. Garam called out to her while putting on his shoes. Before leaving, he wanted to make sure everything was in order. Eat properly, don't open the door for anyone, and watch fewer videos, okay? Myst just looked at him for a moment, then asked, "Are you done now? Can I go?" "Yeah," he replied, and in one swift motion she turned and walked back inside. What was that? Garam blinked. She used to get so anxious whenever he left. But now, with that laptop, did she not need him anymore? He sighed. "Yeah, I'm definitely taking that laptop away when I get back." Just then she called out, "Garam." Before he could respond, she turned him by the chin, pulled his face close, and kissed him on the corner of his lips. "Goodbye kisses are allowed, right?" she said, smiling. "And for the loving kiss, I'll wait until you're ready." She turned and walked back into the house, calm as ever. Garam stood there, frozen, his heart pounding wildly. What was that, and why so sudden? Inside the house, Myst studied all those dramas, trying to figure out how to make Garam fall for her. People in these shows fall in love so quickly, she thought. Just then she felt it. Someone had touched her signal. She rushed to the window and looked outside. There, standing still, was a man-like figure staring at her with sharp eyes. Myst panicked. "Someone found me?" Garam had clearly told her she couldn't be discovered by anyone else. But this man had touched her signal. That was the strange part. Could he be a witch, like in the dramas? Her hands trembled. Garam wasn't home. And in the stories, witches always overpowered princesses. Still, Myst stepped out of the powder room, determined. If the witch attacked, she'd use her water powers to defend herself. She approached the gate cautiously. Then the man knocked from the other side. "So, it's you who's been sending the signals," he said calmly. Myst's heart raced. "How does he know about my signals?" The man continued. "I've been looking for you. A few days ago, you sent out red signals. I got worried." Myst narrowed her eyes. "Don't lie. You're a witch," she said firmly from behind the door. The man blinked, confused. Witch?" He smiled faintly, not understanding what that meant. "No, I'm just like you. That's why I could sense your signals." Myst didn't know how to trust him. "If that's true," she challenged, "then send me a signal, like mine." The man's expression fell. He looked down. "I can't," he said softly. "Humans took that ability from me a long time ago." He looked up again. "That's why I came. To warn you, you shouldn't stay with humans. The more time you spend with them, the more they'll take from you. They're greedy. They'll use you." Then he paused. "Who's keeping you here? Are they hurting you? Torturing you? Open the door. Let me see." "No," Myst said firmly. "I won't open it. I promised Garam. And he's nothing like the person you just described. He saved me, even got hurt doing it. He's not just my friend. He's my loving friend." "No, he's my prince," she declared. The man sighed. "You have too much faith in humans. Well, all right, I'll stay out here until you open the door. I don't know how long I'll survive. But I came all this way. I hope you'll at least look at me." Myst looked up above the gate and froze. Steam was rising, just like what happened to her when she stepped into sunlight. He wasn't lying. Now she was anxious. What should I do? She had promised Garam. But what would Garam do in this situation? Meanwhile, Garam sat on the bus, trying to rest, but sleep wouldn't come. The memory of that kiss kept replaying in his mind. The sensation, the moment, it all felt too real. It's all because of that laptop, he thought, sighing. Yeah, I'm definitely taking it away when I get back. But what he didn't know was that when he returned, the laptop wouldn't be his biggest concern, because Myst would be gone. Garam finally reached near his home. He was thinking he'd leave again just after lunch, so he could get back in time. But then, from behind, a girl suddenly appeared and startled him. He turned around, confused, to see who it was. "Hi, Garam. Long time no see," the girl waved with a smile. Still surprised, Garam greeted her back with a simple, "Hi." Soon, Jin joined them, and the three of them stood together again. The girl was Yuri Lee. The three of them had been friends for a long time. Since Yuri and Jin's mothers were friends, Yuri and Jin had grown up together. When Garam transferred to their elementary school, the three of them naturally became a trio. Yuri was taller back then, so she declared herself their leader and called the boys her minions. Even when they ended up in different middle schools, Yuri remained their self-declared leader. Then in high school, they all ended up together again, though Yuri wasn't taller than them anymore. Still, their friendship continued. That is, until one day Yuri suddenly decided to change schools. She left without even saying goodbye. Jin had asked Garam at the time if he knew anything about it. Garam had answered casually, "No idea. She must have had her reasons." After that, he didn't think he'd ever see her again. But here she was, back, acting like nothing had changed. Jin nudged Garam and said quietly, "Isn't she gotten prettier?" Garam replied flatly, "I don't know. Looks the same to me. Were you in contact with her?" Jin shook his head. "She reached out a few days ago. I figured it was the perfect chance for the three of us to meet again." "But we need to prepare for Mrs. Yu's birthday party," Garam reminded him. "Yeah, but we've got time. She's out and won't be back till the evening," Jin said. Garam's jaw dropped. That meant all his plans were falling apart. If he missed the last evening bus, he'd have to spend the night here, and Myst would be alone. He couldn't even contact her. She didn't have a phone. This is bad. As he was thinking about it, his friends called him to come eat. When he turned, he saw Yuri staring directly at him. Feeling awkward, Garam asked, "What?" Still staring, she asked, "Were those red moles on your neck always there?" Panicking a little, Garam quickly answered, No, they're just mosquito bites. Got them in the village." While they were eating pizza, Yuri suddenly suggested, "We should go on a trip. It's been so long." Jin nodded. "Yeah, we can invite Myst too." Garam froze, still chewing. "Why are you bringing her up?" he asked Jin. "Well, the four of us can go together. It'll be fun," Jin replied casually. Yuri blinked. "Wait, who's Myst?" "Myst is Garam's foreign girlfriend," Jin said with a grin. Garam immediately stuffed pizza into his mouth to shut him up. "She's just a friend," he mumbled. "Don't lie," Jin laughed. "Don't give me that art model friend excuse. You're turning red, so obviously she's more than just a friend." Yuri smiled, intrigued. "So she's an art model? Tell me more about her. If she models, she must be pretty, right?" Both Garam and Jin, mid-argument, paused at the same time and answered together, "Yeah." Yuri raised her brows. "Oh, so she's that pretty, huh?" "Now I'm really curious," she said, amused. After the meal, Yuri waved goodbye to them, reminding them that they should go on that trip soon. Both Jin and Garam waved back, and Jin called out, "Pick a date and let me know." When they returned home, Garam went into his room. It had been a long time since he'd last been there. This was the same room where the professor had welcomed him into the family and made him part of the household. The professor had made sure he never felt lonely, giving him everything he needed. This room had once felt like heaven to him. But now, it was time to move on. He had to be on his own. Someone was depending on him now. The way the professor took care of me, I have to be that kind of person for Myst. Thinking about her, he wondered, what is she doing right now? Back in the village, Myst sat in the veranda, waiting for Garam. She talked to Boo the cat, asking softly, "Do you think Garam's coming back soon?" The sun was about to set. Still no sign of him. Earlier, when the man waited for her, risking his life in the sunlight, she had hurriedly thrown him a water bottle and told him to wait by the nearby creek. She had promised to meet him after sunset. She had to go. He didn't seem like a bad person, and she had so many questions to ask. At the creek, the man waited, staying in the river water. When he got out, he saw someone nearby. It was Myst, standing behind a tree. He smiled gently. So she came. She kept her promise. He walked toward her. Myst asked, "Even if you can't send signals, can I hold your hand and feel your emotions?" He nodded and reached out. The moment she touched his hand, Myst realized he was telling the truth. They were the same kind. He pulled her into a hug. "I'm glad you're safe," he said. He then led her into the river, setting her down in the water. After all this time searching, it wasn't in vain. Myst looked up at him. "I have so many questions, but first, I've lost all my memories." "All of them?" he asked, meeting her eyes. She nodded. "That's why Garam is helping me adjust." "Garam, the loving prince you mentioned?" he asked. She nodded again. Before she could speak, he interrupted, his tone sharp. "Before you ask anything else, you should know. Humans can't help us." Myst's eyes filled with worry. "Why not?" he explained calmly. "We're not meant to live on land. We imitate humans, but in the end, we must return to where we came from. We are beings of the sea, born from its depths. At first, we're no more than a single drop of water. Then we merge into form. When we drink from another creature's body, we take on that form and become complete. And once we gain our chosen body, we live freely in the ocean." Myst listened closely, amazed by what he told her. She had only lived in a small tub after coming out of the crystal. She had no idea how vast the ocean home could be. But then, the man's tone shifted. "Not everyone is lucky. Some don't develop fast enough. A single wave sweeps them away, and they're gone. That could be how we ended up on land," he added. Suddenly, images came to Myst's mind, faint memories of others like her, staring at the ocean's surface from below. It was the first time she remembered anything from her past. But it was too much. Her head hurt. She flinched and covered her ears. "Don't force it," the man said, worried. "You'll hurt yourself." He hugged her again gently. "Be patient." Then she noticed the wound on his chest. "What happened here?" she asked, reaching out to touch it. The man flinched and quickly grabbed her hand, pulling it away. Sorry, I was just curious." "It looked painful," she said softly, realizing she shouldn't have touched it without permission. He said nothing about it. "Let's go back to the ocean," he said. Seeing her worried expression, he added, "Don't trust that human boy too much. I once did, and I lost a lot." "But Garam isn't like that," Myst said quickly. "You don't have to worry." "I think you misunderstand me," the man said, his voice turning firm. "I wasn't giving you a choice." He grabbed her hand. "I'm taking you to the ocean with me," he said, his voice unwavering. On the other side, Garam sat with Jin at the house, waiting for Jin's mother. "Are you sure Mrs. Yu is on her way home?" he asked. "Yeah, she's almost here," Jin replied casually. Garam checked the time. There was only an hour and a half left before the last bus. Jin didn't understand the rush. Why are you in such a hurry? You can just stay here if it gets late. But Garam felt a strange sensation on his neck, and it wasn't a good one. It made him anxious. When Mrs. Yu finally arrived, the two boys stood by the door with birthday poppers. "Happy birthday!" they shouted. Startled, Mrs. Yu flinched in surprise. They quickly placed a birthday hat on her head and led her to the table, proudly presenting the messy dishes they had cooked themselves. Garam looked at her expression, then at Jin, and mouthed silently, "She doesn't look happy." But Jin, being Jin, said confidently, "It's fine, she's smiling." Then they gave her their letters. She read them silently, and after a moment, her eyes welled with tears. She wiped the corners quietly. The boys looked at her in surprise. "We didn't write anything that emotional, did we?" they thought. Mrs. Yu finally spoke. "I'm so grateful. Having two sons who went out of their way to make me feel special." Garam paused. "Two sons?" he thought quietly. Mrs. Yu took photos of them together to show her husband later. Then Garam announced, "I should get going. It's getting late, I have to catch the bus." Mrs. Yu tried to persuade him to stay. "At least stay a few days." "I have some things to finish tomorrow," he said politely. She hugged him. "If I had known you were coming, I'd have come back earlier," she said regretfully. "The house feels so empty without you. Please don't feel pressured by my husband's expectations. If things are hard, just come home." Garam nodded. He wanted to stay longer too, but he couldn't, not right now. He rushed to the bus station, caught the bus just in time, and sat down, panting, relieved he made it. But the sting on his neck grew stronger. Was this a signal? Did something happen to Myst? On the ride from the bus stop to his grandmother's house, he imagined Myst standing outside, smiling, waiting for him in the rainy night. But when he arrived, the backyard was quiet. No one was there. He rushed inside the house, thinking she might be sleeping. But the house was silent too. Panicked, he ran to the powder room and slid the door open, only to find it empty. There was no sign of her. That bad feeling from earlier. He was right. Something had happened. Something bad. Garam rushed outside without delay, running through the woods toward the creek. "Myst," he shouted, voice echoing through the trees. "Myst, where are you? Please answer me." But there was no reply. Rain poured down, soaking him as he ran, water trailing down his cheeks. Whether it was rain or tears, no one could tell the difference. And that's a wrap. Thanks for watching. If you're excited for the next chapter, let me know by dropping a comment and hitting that like button. Your feedback helps me decide when to release the next one, so stay tuned and I'll drop it soon.